I met American people, not Jewish,
Yeah.
who say that in the U.S., if you say, I support Hamas, that is totally fine.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So I say, I tell them that there is a very thin line between saying I support Hamas and being part of Hamas. He said, no, being part of it is a different story. I said, okay, so you're going to wait for the moment for someone who says I support Hamas to become a Hamas member, or not Hamas, any other terrorist organization to become a member. There has to be a differentiation, and I believe the founding fathers of the U.S., if they saw how trembling the world is right now when it comes to free speech, I believe they would have a second amendment to the First Amendment to the First Amendment to add some sort of things that would differentiate. Freedom of speech is I totally respect.
Yeah.
But incitement, directly and indirectly,
Yes.
from the river to the sea, is an incitement.
Yes, I think the problem is that it can be a very, I think it's two things. Number one is that it can be a very slippery slope. You can start with restrictions which sound and seem reasonable, right? The most extreme types of speech, and you say, okay, we're going to restrict those. And then the next thing is, there are people who have tried to say that I engage in hate speech. I don't even use bad language. I mean, I don't hate anyone. I just have some views which by Western standards might be considered too conservative, or, oh, he's too right-wing, or even just by being a person of faith. There might be people who are secular, atheistic, progressives, and they think that everything in the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, they think all of it is wrong, and it's anti-LGBT, and it's against this group and that group, and that's their view on it, and so they want to restrict it. And then you might have someone who's more conservative who is like, no, I want to restrict the thing these other people are saying. So with both who it is that sets the rules and then where those boundaries are, that's where it becomes extraordinarily complicated, which is why when it comes to freedom of speech, a lot of people, particularly in the West, but even outside of it, it's like, okay, this is messy, and we acknowledge that this is messy. People going around chanting certain things, saying they support certain things, using certain slurs or language, it can make different groups of people uncomfortable, but the general idea is, okay, that's true, but it's better than risking the form of potential creeping authoritarianism or totalitarianism that will creep in if you then allow the federal U.S. government to start determining what people can and cannot say. It gets
I understand.
weird very quickly.
I understand. This is the very important point to highlight, that it should have some sort of a variation from a country to a country. Maybe democracy works great for you guys,
For sure.
But I'm not speaking on anyone's behalf, but
Yeah.
I really hate democracy. I believe
This is the most honest man. I love.
I love monarchies.
Yeah.
I believe Arabs need a monarch,
Okay.
a king, a leader who we would follow, a leader who's from the people, who would take care of the people. And if you look at the UAE, Saudi, and other stable regimes in the country, in the region, they are monarchs.
Yes.
So monarchy is something that I really favor. And yes, I know you might say, but democracy and stuff on there. But
I'm more critical of democracy than your typical British person.
I don't like democracy.
That's interesting. So if you, again, I guess the standard pushback on that would be, what if you get a bad monarch?
Okay,
right. What if you get a tyrant?
That's a good question. So, as long as if you have a monarch who comes from the people, and like the case here in the UAE, for example, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed is from the people. So this is why he's taking care of his people. He's taking care of the country. He's addressing the nation as the people of the UAE, residents and citizens.
Yes.
So when you have someone from the family, or a ruling family that is from the people, that is something so great to have. Now, about the other situation, however the situation ends up to, if you have someone who is bad, and so there are ways to change, but not through chaos, demonstrations, and stuff like that. And I always say, I am with the team that says, if there's a country that is ruled by someone you don't like, or someone that, for example, is oppressing you or is doing this and that, Ard Allah wasi'a, as we say, you can leave.
Yes. What are your thoughts on what is currently happening in the Israel-Palestine situation, in whichever way you would like to answer that question?
So I believe that, first of all, let's just remember that, as I told you, I love Israelis as much as I love the Palestinians. I love both people very well. And I believe that the Palestinians have the right to live in dignity,
Yes.
side by side with their Israeli neighbors. I totally believe in the right of Israel to exist. I defend the legitimacy of Israel, biblically, historically, and on the ground. And I believe what happened was a war that was started by a terrorist organization called Hamas on October 7th, when they attacked Israel. Listen, Zuby, I wouldn't be speaking about it if Hamas militants went to Israel and attacked only soldiers. I would still say this is they broke the ceasefire that was there, but the soldiers are trained to retaliate. But what Hamas did is horrendous, or was horrendous. Hamas went to a supernova music festival. People I know were killed in the supernova music festival. Civilians, most of them were not conscious even because they were partying, they were having fun, and then they were faced with a great terror attack, and Israel had to respond. This is how I put it.
Yeah.
And I have to say that this war, if someone to be blamed on this war, I would blame Israel for the great intelligence failure that happened. Huge intelligence failure. That is something for Israel to be blamed. But of course, the one that waged this war was Hamas.
Yes.
And we have to always remember that Hamas waged this war, and they call it Al-Aqsa flood because we want to liberate Al-Aqsa. And they know so well that they are not telling the truth, because Israel has great religious freedom that no one else has, by the way, in the Palestinian territories even.
Okay.
So Israel allows Muslims to worship,
Yes.
allows Muslims to go and do Ramadan and everything. But Hamas used Al-Aqsa Mosque to provoke the feelings of the Muslims. But later on, they started to say what their true intentions were. Their true intentions were to disrupt the normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia and other countries as well. They don't want Israel to integrate. Hamas does not believe in the right of Israel to exist, or they do not honor the lives of Jews. And let me tell you this, Zuby, whoever tells you otherwise haven't read Hamas charter. Even if you said, no, I read that. I read both charters, the one in 1987 and the watered down one in 2017. I say you didn't read it.
Okay.
You didn't read it because it's in English and you don't speak Arabic.
Okay.
If you read it in the Arabic version, Hamas believes in the eternal enmity between Muslims and Jews. That's what their charter says. They have zero respect for the Jewish people. They have zero respect for history and facts. The Jews belong to this region, belong to this land, and they want to annihilate Israel. And they did something horrendous on October 7th. And we should always blame Hamas for any how to say this consequence that this war had. Hamas has to be blamed first. Hamas has to be blamed first. And the pressure should be on Hamas to release the hostages, lay down their arms, and end this war, because this war can end today.
Yes.
If Hamas lays down its arms, release the hostages. And this is how the war should end. Israel will never allow this war to end in a way that Hamas has control over Gaza. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. And no one, let me tell you something, Zuby, you might not hear in the Arab world.
Okay.
No one in the Arab world of the moderate, sincere, and prosperous leadership would want a state run by Hamas next to them. Alhamdulillah, Baruch Hashem. Alhamdulillah. No one wants a state led by Hamas. In even most of the Arab neighbors that condemn Israel or speak highly against this or that operation, no one wants Hamas to be in control. No one. Because they know that these fanatic, radical Islamists will bring trouble to their neighbors as well.
Yes.
We haven't seen Israel bringing trouble. We've seen the Abraham Accords, how it played. And I really hope that more voices in Israel and in Palestinian territories would come up and say, we want to live together in peace and dignity, because Israelis deserve to live in peace and dignity, and also the Palestinians.
Yes.
I would never speak against the Palestinian people because they are my brothers and they are the people that deserve to live in dignity on their land because it is their land as well. The problem is with Hamas, not with the Palestinians. Not all the Palestinians are like Hamas. And I would never direct any speech of my speeches against the Palestinian people in Gaza or in other territories. On the contrary, I believe that the Palestinians have the right to live in dignity and in peace alongside their Israeli neighbors.
Yes. That sounds remarkably sane.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you might not hear this a lot in the outer world. Yeah.
Well, I mean, most of the people I hear having conversations about this are Western voices. And the Western voices, in many cases, it's hard to find ones that are sane and reasonable as well. It's incredibly partisan. It's either you're pro this side and therefore you must be anti this side, or you're pro this side and you now must be anti this side. There's not a lot of nuance.
If I'm between Hamas and Israel, I would definitely choose Israel.
Yeah.
It's not about Israel and the Palestinians. This is something very important.
Okay.
Hamas are radical, extremist Islamists who love to bring troubles to their people and to their neighbors. Yes. And they would never stop with Israel. They would go beyond. And no one wants these madmen to rule or have a state, ever. Yes. But the Palestinian people are educated, are very well, are smart, and they have the right. I always focus on this word. It's very important, Zuby, dignity. We should make the Palestinians, our brothers, feel that they deserve to live in dignity.
Amen.
And I say this, by the way, and I get insults by so many Palestinians. But at the end of the day, I truly understand that they are going through a lot. Yes. And whoever wrote this comment might have a father who he had lost in Gaza.
It's very emotionally charged.
And this is why I don't take it personally. Yeah. But I'm saying that the Palestinian people are not my enemies, of course. Are not anyone's enemies, even the peace-loving people or the peacemakers. And I stress that both people have the right to live in dignity and in peace. Both of them. Yes. And I love both of them.
Yes.
But because people see me that, when they see that I talk a lot about Israel and my love for Israel, which is true, I'm not going to hide, biblically, historically, the prophets of God, the Torah, the Bible, I cannot hide that. But I do love the Palestinians as well, and I believe that they have great people that deserve to live in dignity. Focus on dignity. Dignity is something very important, because some of them feel that people are not saying that we should have the same life as the Israelis. No, they should.